Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys so much, as always, for being with us tonight. Before we get started, the business as usual, please make sure to subscribe to WDWNT TV for lots of great content. We would appreciate it. And also give this video a like right out of the gate because you know you're going to love it. We got some great folks put together for you tonight to talk about some spooky stuff. It's spooky season. So Deep in the Plus, we've always done spooky movies all October long. Spooky-ish. They're Disney. But here to talk about them with us tonight is Emma.
The witches are back, and so am I.
Hold off on that right now. Ron Deanna.
Greetings from Salem.
This is official. And also Desi. How are you, Desi?
Let's get spooky.
Yeah, so it's spooky season, and one of the things we thought we would do to start with is we would watch a brand new movie. So it's Hocus Pocus 2. I don't know if you all have heard about it. Disney definitely didn't do a lot of marketing to make sure that we knew about this movie. So Hocus Pocus 2 is now officially dropped on Disney Plus. So we're going to be talking about this movie. I know it's kind of fresh. It dropped last Wednesday night, I want to say. I'm sure many people were Friday. That's exactly what I said. No. So we were, we were all kind of looking at the hurricane last week, so maybe somebody didn't get a chance to watch it. So if you haven't, just a warning, we will have some spoilers for this movie, but hopefully you guys have gotten a chance to see it. I know that a lot of our fans, I know that Arlo was was like watching it right out of the gate. I know a lot of people watched it immediately. So let me ask, we already reviewed Hocus Pocus on here a while ago, so if you haven't seen that review, go back and watch that one. But I want to ask, this crew about the original movie and Hocus Pocus, and then what you thought of the original, and were you excited about this one? And we'll start with you, Desi. What do you think? Did you love the original, and were you excited about this one?
So I would have been late elementary school, I think, when the original came out. So I felt like I was perfect age to watch it, and I loved it. It was a classic, and I still think it's a classic to this day. So I was excited, but also very nervous about this one because I dislike sequels and remakes in general.
Empire Strikes Back is my answer to that. Ron, what about you, man? You're like Salem centric, buddy. You're like in the middle of like Witch's Alley. Were you? I know you were a pretty big fan of the original one, but were you excited about this one?
I was. I mean, I thought it was going to be interesting. I didn't grow up a fan of the original. I really didn't see it till maybe 10 years ago or so. I don't think, teenage boys were their target demographic when the movie came out, and I still don't think they were really for this one. But I think it kind of grew on me over the years, even before I moved here. But definitely, it's got a lot of love in this city, and I think the campiness of it really works in its favor as a kind of retro movie.
Before we go to Emma, I have to ask you, why does someone move to Salem?
We always liked it. It's got that nice New England historic feel, but it's also got a kind of quirkiness to it that my wife says reminds her of like living in New Orleans where she grew up. So it's an interesting town with lots of history. Smaller town, but not. It's about a 40,000 person city. We're 25 minutes outside of Boston, so it's a good suburb to be in.
I just feel like that's like saying, "Hey, honey, let's move to Transylvania." I mean, maybe I'm off on that. I don't know. I'm sure it's a lovely place to be. Emma, how about you? Same question about the original versus this one.
Yeah, I love the original a lot. This actually wasn't something I really watched as a kid because I feel like it was one of those films that wasn't replayed a lot until, I guess, the past 10 years, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, in high school and college, I absolutely fell in love with it. Like every time that it's on Freeform, on the 31 Nights of Halloween, I watch it every year. Yeah, I even though I didn't watch it when I was little, I absolutely adore the first movie.
So I think that it's I feel like there is a trio of kind of original Halloween. Ron's breaking stuff, kind of they're like a trio of original Halloween movies when it comes to Disney. I feel like Hocus Pocus is one of them. I feel like Nightmare Before Christmas falls into that category, and then I feel like a lot of people Halloween Town. And when we did Hocus Pocus, we kind of the original review, we talked about the fact that like you're usually either Team Hocus Pocus or Team Halloween Town, depending on when you grew up and what you grew up with. There's a lot of other movies, and we're going to do a few more this month, and we've done a ton if you go through our back catalog of things that we've done reviews of. But I feel like Hocus Pocus is the big one. So when they said Hocus Pocus 2 was coming, first I was like excited, and then I think like a lot of people, I was like, oh, what's this going to be? And then when it was like Disney
Home
Plus,
Alone was so good when that
you shut your mouth. You shut your mouth right now about Home Alone. No. So, but the original one was so loved that I feel like it was like, okay, you got to be careful with what you do here. But all three of the mains were coming back. I think you had to have that to make this work. And then they put it together. But when they said it was Disney Plus, that's the thing that always messes me up too. Like this show is deep in the plus. We talk about Disney Plus all the time, but the content that's made specifically for it. And Ron, I'm gonna come to you about this one. Do you feel like when they make something and they already make the decision, this is straight to Disney Plus, it's not going to get the same budget as a theater movie would, and it doesn't maybe necessarily get the polish that a theater movie would? Or am I way off because it's 2022 and everything's streaming?
No, I think for the live action, you definitely see when it's intended to go to Disney Plus in the first place, you see it. It's not quite like being a decom, but it's not quite a full budget, and I think that does show a little bit here. Not that the first one had a superb budget either, but I definitely think there is a focus on shows more for the heavy budget than there are for movies. And I think that comes to like, well, we build all these sets and we get, 6 hours of content. So we're going to budget for that. Or we're going to have to build all these sets and do all this work for 90 minutes of content. So we're going to budget for that. Because the return on these things is going to be the same either way, really, as opposed to movie versus TV in a more traditional format.
Yeah. Were you going to say something else before I tossed you that question?
I was thinking that they really, before making this movie, Disney's really been testing the waters with the franchise over the last few years. Like, we saw them ease them into merchandise about 5-6 years ago. I mean, the Spirit jersey behind my head, which I can't actually see. The show at Not So Scary. Like those, I think were really testing to see if there really was this drive, or it was just a loud section of small fans who liked the first one. I think they saw what they needed to do with it.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's one of those things, again, where this is an IP, I think, that they use to celebrate Halloween in general. In the parks, the Sanderson Sisters is a stage show. If you've ever been to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, it's a staple, just like the Boo to You parade. They put it on the merchandise. They put it on all, on the Halloween stuff. It makes sense. Same thing with Nightmare Before Christmas. So when you go into the parks, you're kind of littered with Nightmare and Hocus Pocus stuff. And I mentioned Halloween Town. You don't really see anything for that, but those seem to be the two IPs that they drive the most. What were you going to say, Desi?
Team Hocus Pocus all the way. Sorry to all of you Halloween Town fans. But Minnie, Daisy, and Clarabelle as the Sanderson Sisters, what a great idea. Whoever came up with that was the cutest thing I have ever seen. So adorable. I need all of those as plushes.
Well, and
they were
when
really
you talk...
cute. Saw them last week.
Oh, did you see them at on the cruise, or did you see them in Disneyland?
Yeah, they were on the cruise. They really rushed you through. I mean, even more than like meeting like the princesses back to back. They're just like one set of photos. That's it. Move along. Like can't like whoever's in the one group, you can't have a group with just the kids, and then the kids and the adults. It just had to be one group, and then they just shuffle you
Oh
along.
wow.
Kind of like when you meet Josh tomorrow in person. No, I'm just kidding. Josh is amazing. Love you,
You
Josh.
would know.
Exactly. No, so take another look at this. So I agree, and it's funny that like, when I saw this, I didn't even stand in line because it was like an hour and a half at Disneyland to get your picture taken with him. I just wanted to see it. Just like you said, Desi, it's like really, really smart, and I can't wait for them to continue to roll this out. It's one of those things where I feel like, why not put it at Disney World and Disneyland and on the cruise line? Why just at Disneyland and on the cruise line? I don't know. It's just it seems too perfect. So, let's get into the movie then. So this movie takes place 29 years after the original. So real time, right? This is exactly 29 years. Next year is the 30th anniversary. Emma, why did they not wait until the 30th anniversary to release this? Why do it at 29?
That's a very good question.
Thank you. I thought so.
I don't know. I I mean, I guess just it was
Maybe there's a full
time.
moon this year.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Maybe it was just time. We need something every 29 years.
Yeah,
They
not
did more
30,
for
every
this
29.
29th anniversary than Epcot's 40th.
Yeah, it's wow. Wow, wow, wow. Anyway, the 29th, it's been 29 years since the Sanderson sisters were around, and it looks like Salem's kind of gone back to the way that it used to be. It's one of those things where it's like we've kind of like Jaws or any of these other things when we see a sequel. It's like we've erased from our memories that a killer shark ate most of the people around here. Now we're pretending like the Sanderson thing, the sisters was just like a vague memory about them coming back 29 years later. And so now they're celebrated in the town, and everybody dresses up as the Sanderson sisters, and that became this big deal in this movie, obviously. But when it starts, we're kind of introduced to the history of the Sanderson sisters, and we go back in time, and we open up and see like the young Sanderson sisters and how they got their start. I think that the girl that played Winnie was freaking amazing.
So good.
Yeah. And again,
I was.
Go ahead, Emma, and we'll go to you next, Desi.
Oh, I was just saying I was really impressed with all three of the child actors, but especially her, with just how well she embodied Bette Midler's interpretation and put it into her own. I don't know. I thought it was perfect. It was very believable. That honestly one of my favorite acting performances of the whole movie, even though we only see it for that first sequence.
I mean, possibly better than the original actresses. Fight me. Anyway, Desi.
I went into this with very low expectations because, as I mentioned earlier, I dislike sequels and remakes in general. But when I saw that little girl with her whole and the other one, and all of them were so cute and so on point and had the mannerisms down perfectly that I was like, okay, all right, I'll give this movie a shot. Let's see how it goes. I mean, it started out pretty well, and usually child actors, I'm sorry, are not that good. So I was really impressed with them.
No, I agree with you, and I think you and I, when we reviewed Obi-Wan, like Leia was great, and I think that this girl brought the same kind of energy to the Winifred part that we saw with Leia. She just really owned it. And had you convinced, and she had just a tinge of this like evil, like that we see from Winifred grown up, but but it seemed natural, which is a sad thing to say. I don't mean that she seemed like naturally evil. It just, she didn't seem to overplay it. And I think that that's what you usually get from kids, is that they kind of overplay it because they don't understand. They haven't had the life lessons to learn, like, what does that emotion feel like. And so here I think she did a really good job pulling that off. The teeth obviously was a huge thing. What we learn is that their parents aren't there. I don't think we really learn the history as to why, unless I missed that. But their parents aren't there. They're living alone.
So they said that their dad was the apothecary. They made it sound like their mom was never around, and so I assumed that witch in the woods was their mom.
Interesting.
That's
she's credited as Mother Witch on IMDb.
Okay.
That was the impression I got, which is why seemed like she was protective of them and was willing to give Winifred her book.
I'm about to say, like, you meet this strange lady. No, see, here's why I'm not sure about that, because she was about to give them, like, the potion to then she was going to devour them. And then she realizes that there's magic in them and then decides to give them the book. That's why I don't know that I feel that way about it. But, I mean, if it says mother, I don't know. That part wasn't clear to me. But, Ron, you think that was the case? That's mom?
I didn't think about it that way. I know she's credited as mother, but I agree with you. I don't think she was, because first thing she says when she's getting there is she's going to eat, she wants to eat the kids. So I just think she was a random character that a random witch that happened to run into them, detected the mother. I just think the real mother probably died like a lot of colonists did at the time.
See, you're giving this movie a lot of credit for being accurate. But we're going to talk about the fact that, well, let's talk about this now. Let's derail for a second and talk about this, Ron, because you wrote this story for WDWNT a long time ago about Hocus Pocus in Salem, because that's where you are. You have some photos that you put up there of places that were in the original movie. But to our understanding, this one didn't really take place in it wasn't filmed in Salem. It takes place in Salem, but it wasn't actually filmed in Salem, right?
It was filmed around mostly locations in, at least the exterior shots, were in Rhode Island. I mean, in the original, like, none of the three witches ever stepped foot in Salem, from my understanding. It was all just the kids and the exterior shots. If you see any of the shots with the witches on any of those locations, they were superimposed.
Really?
Like, yeah. The house where they find the guy who's dressed as Satan was actually in LA. So, like, the Ropes Mansion, which was Allison, is that the name? I'm blanking.
Yes.
So Allison's house is a part of a museum. The old town hall is actually a place where they hold events, where they have the dance. The school used to be a school, is now condos. That house that we're seeing now is an actual private house on the river. A few of the cemetery locations were actually next town over to the south in Marblehead. So a lot of the exterior shots were filmed here, but they just didn't do it for this one. And I'm not sure why. Maybe the town's just changed too much. Maybe they didn't want to get the permits. I mean, they just filmed that Hubie Halloween here a couple years ago, so maybe they didn't want to follow that. But there's definitely some things that were like mentions of the real Salem. Like, I noticed there's like a billboard for Odd Meter Coffee, which is a local coffee shop here, like it was in the movie. But none of the other stuff was here, and it very clearly looks like a New England town, but if you know Salem, it's not Salem.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that I think when I first asked you if you wanted to be a part of this, you're like, I'll talk about the movie, I'll watch the movie, but I don't really have anything from Salem because none of it was shot here. And that's weird that they would have given it so much love in the first movie and none in the second.
I was trying to figure out if there's any reason why. I really haven't been able to see it. Well, like, the Walgreens they go to, I know looks like a little bit like the one on Derby Street, but it's not. It's definitely bigger in the movie and all that. I think that's where it's supposed to be. But a weird fact about that is there's actually a Walgreens now kind of on the site of the original witch hangings.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super dark.
They actually found that out. It was a lost location for years. And I think about 10, 15 years ago, some researchers found that out. Now there's a memorial in the area in the hill behind the Walgreens. But the main thing on that block is a couple houses and a Walgreens.
Is this Walgreens the biggest product placement since the Circle K and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? I mean, I really feel like Walgreens must have ponied up a lot of money for that. No, because they not only do they do the whole bit, but then afterwards they mention it like afterwards, like, oh my gosh, did you see the lights at the Walgreens went out? I don't know. What were you going to say, Desi?
Where's Walgreens headquartered? I wonder.
That's a good question.
Walgreens is headquartered in Rhode Island, and they paid the money for the movie, and therefore they wanted it shot in their hometown. I don't know. My other thought was it's because money, and the city of Salem probably wanted to charge them too much to film there.
I mean, that could be the case, but anyway, so
yeah, it could be. I mean, we have good tax credits to shoot in Massachusetts. We have a whole bunch of other reasons to shoot here. I think there's a few reasons. Probably is the town is very different than it was. Like in the past few years, they've embraced that witch history a bit more. And you walk down Essex Street, which is kind of the main touristy drag downtown. There's haunted museums that have a statue of Winifred inside. There's all these haunted houses. There's fortune tellers everywhere. It doesn't have that same quaint New England feel it did because it's now more of a tourist town than it was back then. I mean, we're going to get almost 2 million visitors, they say, to this town over the 6 weeks before Halloween.
But you know what? Like, lean into that then, right? Because that's what this movie was kind of about, was that they come back and they see all these things like a Walgreens built here, or just these, weird, like the weird Alexa thing. We'll get into that in a second. But there's just like, they're supposed to be fish out of water. The idea that they would come back to this town that was sacred to them and then find like, tarot card readers on the corner. Like, I'm all about that. Read into that. That would be fantastic. So I feel like it might have been just cost that Desi, like you said, because money. It's the cost that kept them from doing the whole thing in Salem. It's like, let's just film this. I don't know, Gary's in Rhode Island. Let's send him out with a camera crew and do some second unit shots.
There might be tax credits unless it's Disney and it's Hocus Pocus, and then you feel like, oh, well, we have the monopoly on this. We're going to charge them whatever we want, and they're going to have to film here. And then
there could be something with having the mayor related back to some of the persecutors in the original, because a lot of the families with the money in town do go back to the people who persecuted the witches, and they don't like to talk about it because that's how they got all their money, was stealing the land from these women. And that's a big part of their history, and they really don't like to talk about it. So, like the Peabody Essex Museum that they fund, which is like one of the main institutions all across town, that actually owns some of the buildings I was talking about earlier, doesn't do anything about the witch history of Salem. They talk about the maritime history. So maybe having that aspect of it actually brought up is something they said no to with the permits. Who knows? But I mean, they got the feel of like Salem with all the booths and the fairs, and there's carnival rides and all these just street vendors and stuff on Halloween. Except that on the real Halloween, you can't walk. It's like Main Street after the fireworks. It really does that amount of people. Like, it's impossible to find a place to eat. It's really that crazy on Halloween.
It's like being in New Orleans for Mardi Gras.
Yeah, it really is. I think they're a little bit, keep people from doing things, but it's that we have cops from every town in the vicinity are here. There's fireworks. It's a big deal, and I like that they tried to show that a little bit here too. At least, even if they didn't do it in town.
Yeah. So let's jump back into the movie. So it opens up with that kind of prequel scene with them, so we can really feel where the sisters came from, and they go into the woods and they get this book and from a woman who may or may not be their mother or may just have been there to eat them, and they get this book, and then they come back into the village, and then like the guy who is basically the minister, the mayor of the town in essence. He was kind of after them before, so they come to get vengeance, and they just sort of cast a little spell and set his house on fire. and then that's kind of like the crux. Like this is maybe where the Sanderson sisters were born. We're seeing their origin story there, and then we come to modern day, and we meet these other three girls, and there's two of them that are friends, and there's this other one who's kind of been outcast from them. So it's Becca, Izzy, and Cassie, and we learn a lot from them through exposition. I got to tell you, and Emma, I'm going to ask you this because you're the thespian on this panel. I think there was too much exposition. It was almost like painful, and maybe that's just me because I'm kind of sensitive to that whole thing because I don't want you to do that dump. It's like every pilot TV episode you've ever seen, the exposition is so much that it just drives me crazy. And it's kind of like, hey, Sarah, remember last week when you and your boyfriend Ted were hanging out at your dad's business, which is this? Like, it's too much for me, or am I crazy, Emma? Tell me I'm crazy.
No, you're right. I think it was a lot. Like it definitely took a bit for the movie to kind of pick up its pace. Like I think the I guess the flashback opening scene had a lot of conflict and a lot of momentum in it already, and I wish that when we got to present day, like that conflict, whatever was going on with those characters and their relationship, was established right away. Then again, like, high school drama is only so deep, so I get it if they were trying to, like, let's make this a 2-hour feature-length film rather than a 90-minute decom, which I almost feel like because of that it would have lended itself better to more of a decom format, just so the pace was faster. But yeah, I was like, come on, like we can establish the stakes a little quicker. Like we don't have to drag it out for so long.
Yeah. Hey, Becca, tonight's your birthday. It's too bad Cassie can't hang out with us because we're not friends with her anymore. It just, I don't know. Desi, what did you think about all that? You were like, thank you for spoon feeding us all this information.
It seemed like they made it almost a little too obvious right off the bat that it was just a miscommunication, and that the two girls still wanted to hang out with the one girl, and the one girl still wanted to hang out with the other two girls.
Spoiler!
I felt like they could have made it seem a little bit more like Cassie was all about her boyfriend instead of just making her look mopey and sad and looking at the other two girls the whole time.
Yeah, they were trying to mend fences, and it's almost like neither of them wanted to take the first step, but you see that conflict, but it was almost like there wasn't enough conflict, right? I guess that's your point, is like,
right.
Like if Cassie was kind of already too into her boyfriend, and it's like, well, and she was acting mean to them, that would have been different, but it didn't seem like that was the case. It seems like everybody seems like everybody in town wanted the three of these folks to get along, and so, you would have thought there wouldn't have been so much conflict.
It felt more like Becca was the one who had the problem with Cassie rather than Cassie having the problem with Becca.
Yeah. So it sounds so adult of us to be talking about, oh my God, Becca was so, yeah, no, exactly. But let me ask you this, though. Maybe the exposition is because maybe I'm not the target audience for this. And Ron, this question's coming to you, buddy. I heard George Lucas say this once, and I've said this on other Star Wars things we've done, is that Phantom Menace was geared toward the kids of that generation. Not the kids that grew up with the 1977 Star Wars, but the kids of that generation. Do you think that this was geared towards kids now more so than it was fan service, or what?
I think it really was that target demographic of a decom that, 12 to 16-year-old, mostly female audience. And I think that showed in the difference in the choice of the main leads. Like, I like that it was a diverse group from one perspective, but then in the main leads in the original, you had the teenage boy, a teenage girl, and a younger girl, giving almost, and then all of a young age group somebody to identify with more in that. And this, on the other hand, chose the three girls, and the only male character from that age group is just presented as a caricature of all sorts. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if that's the audience that they were going for. But even my wife commented to me, it's like, this was made more for teenage girls than for the people who grew up with the original.
Yeah, I think like when they were talking about bringing back Lizzie McGuire, I think that Hilary Duff wanted it to be, hey, this is for the people who grew up with the original, and we want to target where they are in their lives now, make it a little more adult, a little bit more grown up, as opposed to say Girl Meets World was kind of targeted to the same demo as Boy Meets World. So I feel like that's maybe why a lot of the exposition was getting on my nerves, is because like I'm not the target demo for this. The target demo is today's kids. So as someone who has some of today's kids, did you watch this movie with your boys, Desi?
No. No, I'm sorry. Not because I think it's too old for them, but because Rob kept pushing me into, when are you going to watch it? When are you going to watch it? And we were so busy all weekend cleaning up
Wow.
after the hurricane.
I'm such a bully.
I didn't get a chance to watch it until after they went to bed last night.
Twice. I just, the once was to ask you and once to ask you if you watched twice. Anyway, so, but one of the things about this movie being for kids, though, which brings me back to a problem, like a fatal flaw that I had in the first one, is if the first one's about kids, why did the black flame candle have to be lit by a virgin? Like, why is that, like, germane to the plot point? And again, we'll take that to Ron, because you're the, like, is that a Salem thing? Like, y'all got a thing about virgins up there? What's the deal?
No, I think that's a standard spell thing, like in the, in movies and stuff, and it's also more of a thing that got talked about in 80s and 90s films. I mean, was a big point in a lot of kids movies at the time that would come up. I mean, I think it can't. I can't think of an example offhand right now. I'm blanking on it. But like, it definitely was something that was more discussed than you would see today. And
But yeah,
I mean,
but it's a kids movie. Like, why is that the thing? How about that just someone has to light the black flame candle? Like, not that it has to be done by someone in, a specific person. That just drives me crazy, because if its demo is children, why do that? Because
There has
guess
to be
what?
a reason that adult magician can't light it himself.
That's a good point. That is a good point. That they're actually, but in the first movie, wasn't necessary, I don't think. And so maybe in this one, there could have been another reason that he could have done it. Maybe it had to be done by, a witch or
They
something
talked-
like that. But
It was absolutely in the first
I mean,
movie.
it was
no, I know
it's a
it was
purity
absolutely in the
thing
first movie, but
spells.
it didn't. What I'm saying is, it didn't need to be in the first movie. I know it was in the first movie because it bothered me in the first one. I'm saying I don't think it needed to be there. Purity spell, okay.
I don't think so either, but unfortunately the precedent was already set, so they had to continue with it in the second.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Well, that was worth the trip, Emma. Thank you. So okay, all right. So we'll forget that, because they bring it up and they sort of make a joke about it, because the little kid asked the question and the mom's kind of looking at Gilbert, going, "What are you going to say here?" Because after we've learned about the girls and we know that they like magic, they go to the magic shop that's in town. I assume there's 900 magic shops in Salem, or is there just one?
Oh yeah, no, that's the whole thing. With the candles are a big part of it. My wife buys the, luck candles and all those things and keeps them around the house, for all those different spells that have the enchantments on them. But one thing about the shop was supposed to be their old house, which was still kind of deep in the woods in the first one, wasn't it? And now it's in the center of town.
I mean, do we really need to have continuity, Ron? Come on. What are you, crazy? Okay, so then the basic gist is, this man Gilbert runs this shop, and he loves to tell the tale of the Sanderson Sisters, and so he's telling it, and he mentions that 29 years ago today they were seen flying over Salem, and and kind of that's part of this myth that he's telling. And then the girls come in and he kind of gives them a couple things that they need for this ritual that they always do on Halloween night, which just happens to be Becca's birthday. And he gives them these things, and he gives them the candle. So, he shows in his little stunt, or his skit that he's doing, that the black flame candle, the original one, had been, kind of burnt to the end. and then he does a magic trick to bring it back. But apparently he has now crafted his own black flame candle, and he sends it with the girls into the woods to do their little what did they keep calling it? Ritual. They go and they do this ritual every year. So they go out into the woods. They light the candle. Here's a weirdness, and Desi, you watched this movie apparently because I bullied you into it. But you watched this movie, and so when you were watching it, like they light the candle, and then it starts to spark. So they dump water on it to turn it off, or put it out, and then the black flame comes up. If they hadn't dumped the water on it, would it have come back? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it looked like the sparking was going to happen, but then the black flame came up after they turned it off. Tell me how that works.
What's the magician guy's name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert. Okay, so Gilbert fashioned his own black flame candle. My guess is he took wax from the original one and mixed it with wax from those birthday candles that you blow them out and then they spark back up again.
Correct. Anyway, so sure. I mean, that is a really good, really good improv of what happened there. I buy every bit of it. Thank you for putting that together.
Well, I made the comment when we were watching it that the spark isn't one of those fake candles that you can't blow out, because that's what they look like.
Right.
There you go. So, I mean, again, now your hypothesis is proven by Ron Deanna. There you go.
I mean, he's in Salem. He would know.
Yeah, exactly. He is our resident Salem expert. Again, why do you live there? Never mind. So now that they've lit the candle in the middle of the woods, the sisters show up. And of course, when they show up, they sing.
Yes.
I mean,
and at first I was going, why? Who are you singing to? And they actually address it. They're like, who are you singing to? And then she pops in front of her and says, you. But they don't seem to be singing to them. So, like, Ron, was this scene necessary? Did you love every second of them singing The Witch is Back?
No, I think this is when the movie actually started to lose me a little bit. Was this. Because they have the musical number in the first one, but it's not a musical.
There's a reason for it.
I watched this and I'm like, oh God, are they really just going to try and cram this to be a musical?
Bette Midler had
you
it
have
in her contract.
great singer-actresses, so why not use them? But, like, it wasn't really that in character for them. I mean, it was a cool intro, but...
So I have this argument again about Star Wars that for like the Phantom Menace, they were like, well, what did people love in the first movie? Well, there wasn't enough lightsabers. Got it. 10 times the lightsabers. Let's do it. So, I mean, maybe they were like, what do people remember about the first Hocus Pocus? Remember when they sang? Double it. Let's get it going. And a song that I don't know. Well, I mean, you were kind of quoting it coming in, Emma, so it definitely put a spell on you.
I was. Yeah, it is a little catchy, but here's my thing. If they were going to go with the musical route, they needed to do it from the beginning, which I am kind of surprised they didn't, because the mother witch, who I can't remember the actress's name, but she's on Ted Lasso and sings really well. I'm surprised that they didn't have her sing something, especially since... Sarah Jessica, I can't speak today. Sarah Jessica Parker's character sings to Lure the Children In, so I was like, oh, maybe that would have been a cool thing, like her teaching that song. I don't know, whatever. But I was like, okay, this is a weird moment for this movie to turn into a musical. Won't be mad about it necessarily if it continues, but they kind of just had it there, I guess, for a moment of comedy and then never visited or addressed it again. Really.
Yeah.
Because even the song in the other movie, it wasn't a musical. It was them casting a spell. So it wasn't, you know what I mean, character moving the plot forward through song. So.
Right. If they had gone full musical, I think I would have found it less bad as the movie went on. It just felt out of place, especially like, oh, this is going to be the song for the movie. Except that they go ahead and do the same exact thing that they did in the first movie later on with
Right.
another cover song, and it really just didn't make any sense in universe or out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Desi, why did they choose a song from Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind?
That's exactly what I was about to say. They must have spent a lot of money on that song and needed to get their money's worth out of it. So they put it in Cosmic Rewind and this movie. I said that exact same thing to my husband when we were watching this movie last night, was that they must have paid a lot for those rights and they want to get their money out of it.
And the movie ended with conga. The end.
I would love that.
I would not. No, I'm with you, Ron. Like I wanted it to be over so bad when they were singing that
next movie,
song.
they're going to sing, do you remember the 31st night of October?
No.
So anyway,
no.
so the musical number, none of us really cared for it. I think. I mean, and again, Bette Midler, bless her heart, the Rose, great singer. It's great that she would, that they committed into that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's break away for a second and talk about like them as 29 years later, they all look pretty good.
So I had seen some behind the scenes pictures where they did not look that good. They must have done some great airbrushing in post or some deep fake or something, because they looked better, I think. For being 30 years older, they looked closer to their original age than Hayden Christensen looked to Anakin Skywalker in that flashback.
Well, and I mean, they're supposed to be, witches, and I don't know. I think they do a great job. Honestly, the only thing that threw me was Kathy Najimy has dropped so many lbs since the first movie that she looked a little unhealthy in comparison to how she looked in the first movie.
And her jaw-dropping thing, she actually said like she couldn't drop it on the one side anymore, so it's actually different in this movie than it's the opposite side that she was doing it. I was reading something about that. And to me, it was so pronounced. She looked like she had a stroke to me. Half the movie, that's what it looked like. And I think she looked good. I think Bette Midler looked like closer. But, I mean, like, they're a little older than Sarah Jessica Parker, who was literally twice the age she was when she filmed the first one. And I think that the age difference was more pronounced for her than the other two.
Yeah. I still don't understand why Kathy Najimy and Bette Midler didn't go by their regular names. Like, it's weird that Sarah Jessica Parker goes by Sarah. Like, every time Bette Midler would say to her in this movie, Sarah, I was thinking, it sounds like you're saying it as her real name and not her character name. There's no reason. It's the exact same name. But for some reason, I was like, oh, she forgot that her... Nope, that's the character's name. It doesn't make sense. Like, why just the one?
Did
Unless
she do a Tony
book
Danza thing early in her career?
Right, where everybody's every role he ever played was Tony. Now, and this is based on a book, Ron. Yes, the original.
The original, I'm not sure. I know there's a book sequel that I don't even know if it has to do with this. I've never read any of them. That's the game hanging, not a book.
That's the only thing I was trying to think, is that maybe if like the original, if it was based on a book that, and by the way, I watch movies, I don't read books, but if it was based on a book, then perhaps the character's name was already Sarah. That's the only reason I'll let them get away with it or allow it. Just putting that out there. So we'll dig into it and find it. It's just weird. But I think for her, she had a lot of eyeshadow on, which was distracting to me because it made her eyes look very, like, I don't know, weird. But then, I think Bette Midler looked basically like she did in the first movie to me. And then Kathy Najimy, like I said, she was much, much, much thinner. But I think they did a great job. And I love that all three of them came back. I think that was a really big thing. Not that I think they all had other things they were doing, but I hope that they paid them handsomely for putting on these outfits and coming back. I hope that happens.
Their pay had to be half the budget for this. It just absolutely had to be.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about like the scene in the woods. Like, it takes place over the whole night. The moon sits in the same place in every shot of the woods, and really, that's like, come on, guys, you can do better than that with a matte painting, please.
Well, okay, so but could we have shaved some money off of their price if we only had them sing one song, or maybe none, maybe none. I don't know. Maybe it was in their contract they had to sing. Bette Midler's like, I gotta sing, and they're like, we're
I
gonna.
bet it was.
Yeah, she's like, I get what you said. Bet it was. That's funny, but I think they probably were like, she was like, I'm gonna sing 4 songs, and they were like, can we get you down to 2? And maybe then they were like, yep, we'll agree to that. Then they didn't sound bad. It just didn't fit. That was
No.
my problem with it. It just didn't fit. And especially like the contemporary song. At least I Put a Spell on You has a little bit of like like an older vibe to it than One Way or Another, or the Witch is Back. So I don't know. It just seemed a little bit out of place. Like like in Flubber when they did Goo a Little Dance, Make a Little Flub. It was like, why are you doing this to me? Anyway, so now we're getting through this movie, and witches are back because they've done the song, so we know that they're back. And then they go and they sing, and then they kind of trap Becca and Izzy. Is that her name, Izzy? They trap her in. Yeah, it's Izzy. So they trap them, and Izzy and Becca, of course, just immediately go, "Oh, well, we're 40. We're not children. You shouldn't eat us." Well, here's what I don't understand. Don't they smell children?
Well, they said that she smelled awful, right? So maybe that's why they weren't interested in eating her,
Maybe.
because
I don't know.
she smelled awful because
And
she's a witch, and it didn't matter if she was a child.
in the first movie, they were going for children, not teenagers so much, right? Like, they had to eat the actual, like, little kids. They had, like, the bully teenagers in a cell in the house, but they still needed actual children. So,
Right.
what's the line for children for the spell?
They said this time that they weren't going to mess around, and that anytime they met a teenager this time, they were just going to kill it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's a different setup in this one. In the original one, it was the brother looking out for his little sister, and and like in both centuries, right? So like Binks is looking out for his little sister, and then the next generation he's looking out for his little sister. There wasn't that relationship. It was the 3 of them, but it was the 2 of them for most of it because Izzy and Becca are by themselves. So once they meet them, they try to trick them, which I don't love that. Like that they're so gullible that they could be tricked like 18 times in a row. We're 40. Oh, okay, you're 40. Then we believe you. And by the way, you can come to the Walgreens and we'll let you drink lotion that has like essence of child in it, because that's what we do 29 years later. So once they take them and to town, they take them into the Walgreens and they do the weird walk down the aisle. Do we love that? Is it fan service, Ron, or
I
is it
liked
insult? Yeah.
That was 100% a fan service moment.
And then they go in and they drink lotions and eat face masks and all kinds of stuff, and they still don't get that it's not real until the girls try to sneak away. But the girls are starting to use the magic that they've learned of using salt as a barrier and all these other things to try to ward off the witches. So in this one, I think that the kids are a more equal combatant. Like they're a formidable foe to the Sanderson sisters. But then there's the scene where the Sanderson sisters run into girls dressed as the Sanderson sisters, and then their vanity kicks in. So I do think that's on brand for them. That's kind of neat how that happens. I didn't really come up with too much trivia on this one, so I'm gonna only ask 2 questions. Because again, this is the first time y'all have watched it. It's a little different when we're watching things for the 800th time. I assume that everyone on the panel only watched it the one time.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, I tried to again, and I just couldn't.
Okay, so the sisters, when they leave the Walgreens, they all leave on a different conveyor. Winifred leaves on a broom. The Kathy Najimy character leaves on 2 Roombas, or like off-brand Roombas.
Broomies.
What is Sarah leave on?
Swiffer Wet Jet.
Swiffer Wet Jet.
Brand placement, right? What's the mascot for the high school?
The skeletons.
The Puritans, right?
Yeah.
That is correct. Ron was kind of like rolling his eyes in the back of his head, like, what is it? I should know this. Yep, it was the
I
Puritans.
can't remember if it's the Pilgrims or the Puritans. It was.
Well, I know for sure the school name was Skelton, so that's why I guess skeleton.
And last one, what's the name of the magic shop?
Gilbert's Magic Shop.
Ye Old Magic Shop?
Ye Old Magic Shop. It's not Williamsburg. It's Salem.
I don't know. Oh.
El Rey de la Magica. There's a big sign behind Gilbert the entire time that says it on it. So that's it. That's all I had. I felt like we couldn't not ask any questions on this one. There is a weird
Talk
question.
about the scene where they left again, and just with the whole cowabunga moment.
Oh yeah, surfing? How did they know surfing and cowabunga?
How do they know one way or
Oh, yeah,
another?
that's true.
They must have taken many detours that we didn't see in the first movie.
Ron, I have a question. I don't know if this is based on local lore or not, but I listened to I watched the first half of it with headphones in, and I heard that as Becca's getting called to the front office and she's sitting outside waiting to hear like if she's going to get detention early on, there's a loudspeaker call for Archibald Sinclair. Please report to the office. Does that mean anything to you?
Not offhand.
Like, I feel like that should be an inside joke kind of a thing, but when I searched Archibald Sinclair on Google, it came up with like a, what is that website that tells you where graves are? And it's in Massachusetts, by the way. Like findagrave.com or whatever. But it is in Massachusetts.
We have one of the oldest cemeteries in the country is, right in the middle of Salem. And there are, Mayflower pilgrims buried there. So maybe I can't remember all the names.
Archibald Sinclair, born 1780, buried Marblehead, Essex County, Massachusetts. That's what I found when
Marblehead
I Googled it.
is okay. So that might have been the cemetery. The Marblehead Cemetery was the one they used to film in the first movie, where he gets beat up by the bullies. So maybe it is one of the grave. Maybe it's the grave you get knocked over. I don't remember. I could look through the pictures of the article I sent you.
I don't know. Just putting that out there. I thought that was weird that it was very pronounced. So
I'm guessing it has something to do with the cemetery from the first movie. Then.
Yep. Let me go back to cast and talk about one other person we didn't talk about. So we talked about Hannah from that plays Rebecca on Ted Lasso. We talked about the 3 main characters, and we talked about that the 3 little girls did a good job, and I think that the 3 teenage girls did a good job of acting. So I think all those did great. We didn't actually talk about. Let's talk about 2. One is Billy Butcherson makes his return. Doug Jones comes back as Billy Butcherson, which Doug Jones, the Eternal, play the large, goofy-looking guy. That's his role in every movie that he ever does. I think he was in that The Shape of Water as the sea beast, and so he's always the weird
Hellboy, Saru
Right.
in Star Trek Discovery.
Exactly. Sam Richardson as Gilbert, though, was great. He did an Apple TV show recently that I thought he was great on. But the one that I wanted to mention was Tony Hale. Tony Hale, what the heck? Does Disney is that their lucky charm now? I mean, he's Forky, the voice of Forky. He's in the and I'm forgetting the name of it, but the TV show. The Disney and the Mysterious Benedict Society. And so I feel like Tony Hale is kind of everywhere now. But the funny part to me is in the Mysterious Benedict Society, he plays himself and his brother. And he kind of did that here as he plays the Reverend and, Trask, like modern day. It's just kind of funny. So I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that up. Nobody has any other Tony Hale things they want to talk about. Every time you see Tony Hale, Ron, do you always think about Buster from No.
100%.
Yeah, okay. Because I was expecting to have a fake hand. Like on Arrested Development. Kids, look it up.
I'm really bad with actors, and it took me way too long to realize that was him. But
Really?
yeah, I'm not good with names and faces. So
Here's a question about his character. He is so excited about these freaking candy apples. And he keeps going,
Oh my
and
God.
he talks about the candy apples, and he gets in line for the candy apples, and then he has to go home and like reprimand his daughter, and then come back and get in line for the candy apples, and then he waits in line for the candy apples, and then he gets one, but then he loses it, and then like, what's the plot reason for that, Desi? Like, why do we? Because you had a great answer for me on the candle. Maybe you can help me uncover this one. Why did they spend so much time on that? Do you think it was a deleted scene that like the entire movie hinged on the freaking candy apples?
Maybe Disney is trying to sell some candy apples at the parks, and this was their subtle product placement, because you've already got the Swiffer WetJet, you've got Walgreens. Why not candy apples too? Just try to make all the money you can.
I mean, I guess. Ron, any thoughts?
it was. I actually said out loud while we were watching it, "This is the dumbest B plot I have ever seen." And he acts like, "Oh, she's in Boston now. It's 25 minutes. It's 25 minutes away. There's a train that'll get you there, like right into town." And he acts like she moved to LA with these candy apples because she was on another product placement for Good Morning America that they have to both say what GMA means in
Right.
it too.
I meant to mention that too. Yeah, they talk about GMA. What is GMA? Good Morning America, as seen on ABC, owned by Disney. Yeah, that. Well, you know what? The one thing I didn't notice in this that I feel like we saw more of in the original movie was like references to Disney characters in the costumes, because when the movie first opens up, it's Halloween and the kids are walking through the town. I'm like, let me use that as trivia. Like, where's all the kids dressed up as like Thor and all that? I never saw.
Did you
like,
notice that the couple standing in line behind the mayor was Satan and a woman in hair rollers?
oh
and a ribbon.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, in the crowd, I saw a Madonna costume that looked like the mom from the first movie.
What was the dad? He was a vampire, right? In the first one.
Can't remember. It wasn't as memorable.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so the Gary Marshall, Penny Marshall cameo in the first movie was the devil and the woman in hair rollers. So it was neat that he kind of takes a look at them, because there's no other reason for that. Could that have been the entire reason for the candy apple line?
The whole reason for the candy apple.
Just for that one thing? I mean, possibly. It was kind of a little bit ridiculous, but I remember, like, I took a note and I wrote down, Mayor obsessed with the apple too much, because it just didn't.
Yes.
You know, like Ron said, it was the dumbest B story in the history of B stories.
Was it to set up that whole candy apple like joke where it's like, don't tell them it's poisoned? I mean, like, was there like maybe there were so many rewrites that the candy apples at one point were a plot point or something?
So here's where
it just got left in there.
Here's where I think that they actually they seeded something that came home to roost, was the vacuums. Like, they seeded that one where it's like, I'm like looking at Kathleen and Jamie writing that, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But if they're Roombas and they've been enchanted to hate mess and they save them from, like, I'm like, what idiot's going to let them out of the salt? Kind of like, you know, when you're watching Infinity War and you're like, no, don't let Star-Lord try to be a part of this plan. He's going to mess it up. It's the same thing here with, like, who's going to be the dummy that breaks this salt spell? And they had the little things come up and erase it. And it's like, okay, you seeded that early and it paid off for you. Good for you. Now, what about the apple? Tell me about the apple.
It was a very terrible attempt to give this man some kind of stakes and importance to going to this event, and I was like, can we please not have any more moments of him waiting in line for these freaking apples, because it is so stupid. I would rather, like, see anything else, any other part of the plot of this movie again. That being cut could have moved the pacing along. We just had to know that he was away from the house so that way the party could happen. that was it. We did not need this B plot. I
Well,
absolutely hated it.
He's the mayor. He could have been doing anything. Maybe it was like, oh, he's Buster. Maybe this seems like a thing Buster would be obsessed with. Let's just run with it.
and it's an hour and 47 minutes. It's not a quick movie, but maybe they did have to delete stuff out to make it a good runtime for the audience that they had. I don't know, but I feel like if this was a DVD, there may be deleted scenes, and this is one of the things I come back to again and again about Disney Plus is they should put more of the deleted scenes, the extras, the featurettes, all those things they would have put on a DVD should be on Disney Plus, but the only thing under extras is like the trailer, and that's it. So maybe we'll find out someday when there's a DVD release of this, that there was some great payoff to the whole thing that they had to shorten the movie, and otherwise we would have gotten to see what the heck, Candy Apple.
It feels like it went through the whole movie feels like it went through a lot of rewrites just from looking at the feel of it to me, and maybe that was one of them. Like, it definitely has that written by committee feel to me.
Well, and that kind of takes me to kind of the ending is I feel like the resolution was super rushed. Like the whole thing with they're trying to do the spell, and they're trying to do this spell that's going to give Winifred the ultimate power, and she wasn't supposed to do it, and she's doing the spell, and the girls all of a sudden Becca finds out she's got power, and then they start the spell, and then the other two girls get power, which I didn't know they didn't have before. I mean, that wasn't clearly defined to me that they weren't on the same level as far as witches go as Winifred, but now they have power and they start shooting it like they're cowboys. And then they take the book, they run away. Then they come back and they're like, hey, I hope you didn't finish the spell because we figured out that, that you're Thanos and you just pushed Gamora off the ledge. Ron, heavy sigh from Ron.
I don't know. I just felt like the whole it's part of the whole humanizing villains. I think that's been more popular
yes.
in movies, and rather than have them have some sort of conflict, really some sort of fight at the end with, oh, the good guys got powers, the bad guys got powers, but the bad guys have to defeat themselves. We can't let the kids fight, which. I think that goes to what we're saying is that's more of the target modern kids audience rather than, the Goonies outsmarting the Fratellis. It was really the villains defeat themselves.
Yeah, I did think that same thing, that they really did humanize the villains in this one. They start out by showing you why Winifred and her sisters are the way they are because of the prequel kind of, going back in time to see them as little girls, and you that does humanize them and why they were very protective of each other. And then we go to this scene where she loses her sisters and she's like, this is no power is worth this. I want to go back. And so it is a Maleficent type of a situation, or even Thanos is very humanized in the movie because it's like he's got a good, theoretically a good intention of trying to save the entire universe. There's a lot of humanizing of that character. That was really that dawned on me as that happened, because the resolution is now we feel bad for the Sanderson sisters. We want, whereas in the first one we just wanted them to be gone because they were running amok. So yeah, I mean, and so there's a resolution, and then now we have a new trio. Did everybody watch the post-credit scene?
No, I didn't know there was a post-credit scene.
Yes, but I don't remember it very well.
So with the cat, what was the cat's name? Cobwebs?
Yes, Cobwebs.
I kept thinking, as much as they showed the cat, that the cat was going to still be Binks somehow, even though Binks was set free in the first one. I was like, when Billy disappears and the sisters disappear and all the spells are broken, I thought they're going to go to the cat and then we're going to see the cat transform back into something. Maybe like the grown-up guy from NCIS. Maybe something like that would have happened that we would have been able to see, or I don't know. But it really would have been interesting to see it's like they showed him too much, and I wanted to see if there was something there. But they show him, and he walks by a box that says BF number 2, so like black flame candle number 2, and then it goes off. So we see the three girls walk off, and the Sanderson sisters walk, so that could happen, and then we see the other black flame candle. So I think they've sort of set the stage to say, look, the Sanderson sisters are gone. We're not going to see them again. But there could be a Hocus Pocus 3, and it could have Becca, Cassie, and Izzy. I don't know.
Right, but like, how would the black flame candle be involved? Because if the Sanderson sisters are gone and their magic is gone because their spells the rest of their spells went away too, then that also means that the candle wouldn't work because they set a curse in the first movie before they got hanged, so therefore the candle shouldn't work anymore. So how there could be another sequel makes no freaking sense to me.
No, I agree. I agree. It makes no sense. And to Ron's point, there may have been 19 rewrites, and maybe they were like, we'll just throw this post scene in and confuse people. It doesn't really make a ton of sense. But the last thing I want to say, and then I want to throw it around for everybody to say, final thing before you give final thoughts. So I want to get any like wrap up from you, but my wrap up of it is that what I missed from the first movie is the journey of the kids. Because in this one, I don't think we saw enough of that journey. There were stakes. There were stakes involved with the kids, and you know there was like some danger, and we felt for them, like we were attached to them. I don't know that I ever really kind of bonded with the little like fight between Cassie and Becca and Izzy. I don't think that meant as much to me because I felt like with the kids, you relate to them. You went on that journey with them in the first one, and with this one, I didn't get as much of that. But again, before you give final thoughts, Ron, anything else that we missed?
No, I can't really think of anything.
That's the kind of energy I was
That
looking
really
for.
stood out. Yeah. No, it just
Yeah.
nothing really stood out to me in it. That's kind of the worst part of it. It didn't stand out as there was a few moments I said that, I really kind of lost it, but like they weren't like the worst thing ever, but it wasn't great. It just fell flat too much.
Gotcha. Okay, well then let's skip that part and let's just go to final thoughts. So again, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. I will say that we would love it if you would subscribe to WDWNT.TV. We have Disney Entertainment News Today, which dropped yesterday if you want to check that out. We do News Tonight every Thursday night, and then Fridays are every other Friday or so we do Boxed In, and then on Sunday nights is Park Center. Park Center will be back this week. Last week we had the 40th anniversary of Epcot, so this week, Park Center is back, and we'll talk about that. So with that said, let's go ahead and get final thoughts. Let me get it. This is the important part. This is why you guys showed up. This is it, because we need to start asking these people, and we're going to start with Emma and work our way back around to Ron. Emma, would you? And again, thanks for watching. No, I'm just kidding. Emma, would you recommend this movie?
Well, I'm going to say maybe, because I don't want to give it a no, and I am not really confident to say yes. I will say it's definitely more worth your time to watch the original. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I watch this again. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I feel like it was still, other than the moments where it fell flat, there were still times I enjoyed it, so I can't say I completely hated it. So I'm gonna give it a maybe. Also, we didn't mention the RuPaul's Drag Race cameo as far as product placements go in this movie. But anyway, yeah. So I'll give it a maybe. Take it or leave it.
Okay, Miss Desi?
I think that I have the same feelings as Emma. I didn't hate it as much as I hate many sequels and remakes. I don't think it's as good as the original, but I have certainly seen worse things, so it was better than I was expecting because I came in with very low expectations and it was better than I was expecting. Do I think this is a must-watch every Halloween? Probably not. If I do think that the original one is a must watch every Halloween. If I have finished the original one and, I'm not tired yet and I feel like, yeah, why not? I might throw it on. I would watch it again. But I'm not going to go out of my way and say, this is a must do. Let's gather the whole family together, make popcorn, and sit and watch this movie every single year because it's a must watch. So it's like yeah, watch it if you feel like it. It's not like I'm not going to say, yes, I recommend this. Oh my God, it's as good as Brink. It's so good. But it's decent. So yeah, if you have time and feel like watching a new Halloween movie, go for it. I don't think it's horrible.
You just lost all credibility by comparing it to Brink. I'm just telling you. I'm just putting it out there. That's the thing. Ron.
Side note, Brink's been on my mind a bit this week because for some reason I started listening to the Suicide Machines a lot again, and I think they've got a song in there, totally unrelated, but that movie's popped in my head a few times this week because of that. This movie, it's a one-off. I think it's worth watching once just to see where it goes, but I can't recommend it being like a repeatable thing or anything like that. It has some moments. I think there's some. I think one of the things that falls flat on is the first one is so over the top most of the time, and this one isn't. It feels like the decom version of Hocus Pocus, and if that's your thing, run with it. But it really doesn't feel like a great sequel to the original. It's worth watching once, but not putting on that any kind of pedestal or putting on repeat.
Sorry, I got distracted by this comment. I'd honestly take Goonies over Jaws and Star Wars.
Wow. No.
No, I'm just kidding.
I love Goonies, but I love Star Wars.
Right?
Yeah, Goonies never say die. By the way, I don't know if I've told this story before, but because the chat is crazy with Goonies right now, I was at a Comic-Con where Sean Astin was being asked questions, and somebody came up into the middle to ask a question, and they said, first of all, Goonies never die. And he goes, excuse me? And there was like, Goonies never die? Audience, you want to help him out with that? Goonies never say die. So like he literally flamed this guy. Huge fan coming up to ask a question, and Sean Astin put him down. It's like it was just like, get it right or get off the stage, basically, is what he was saying. So I mean, we've all kind of given our thoughts. I just want to say this though about this movie is that I think that it's fan service, absolutely 100% fan service. And so if you like the original, I think that you will enjoy watching this because it is for you. It is they go back to the drawing board and they bring the witches back and they sing about it, and they try to like include all the little moments, the amok, the walk, the weird sneers, the black flame candle, the whole bit. And so it is fan service to me, and if you like the first one, you need to watch it because and you've probably already watched it. So that's great. If not, I would say if you've never seen the original Hocus Pocus, go back and watch that one. It is, as Desi said, it is like, required watching for Halloween. It is great. And the irony is I think it came out in July of 1993, which is weird. But it is, it is one of those movies that I feel like has so much heart to it. And even though some of the things feel a little dated, in general, I feel like it's still a very enjoyable movie to watch. This one, I wouldn't recommend unless you've seen the first one. And I mean, it's kind of got that Hocus Pocus 2 on the side for a reason. It's the follow-up to the original. I agree with you, Ron. I think that it probably deserved a better one. When Incredibles 2 came out, I feel like that was like, 11 years later, and I feel like it did the first one justice. I think it served it pretty well. But when this one came out, it just completely feels like fan service. But you know what? Let us know in the comments.
Kenny Ortega.
Yeah, there you go.
I really think his style is really what was missing here. The director has some credits. I think she directed, like, the biggest thing I saw was the movie The Proposal.
Okay.
But, like, that doesn't seem to fit, like, making a kid's fantasy movie. Like, that's not the same category.
Yep. But again, let us know in the comments afterwards what you thought of this movie. We would love to get your comments and your feedback on it, but you've heard ours. Now, the rest of October, we've got some more kind of spooky picks for you. Next week, we're going to do the Werewolf by Night, which is the Marvel Halloween special that drops this Friday. So, spend your weekend catching up on that. We have a panel of people who will be talking to us about that, including Charlie from Disneyland News Today will be on that panel. And then the week after that, we're going to do Toy Story of Terror, and Patrick will be here to talk about that one. And then we'll end the month with Maleficent. Speaking of villains being humanized, that's one we were going to watch a long time ago and didn't end up watching, and I think it'll fit for the season. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, please give us a like so people can find this video, and thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a great night. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.
Happy
Bye.
Halloween.